Hey guys, just a quick explanation for some technical difficulties on the AnimeNEXT 2017 con report. While shooting it, I kind of forgot to charge the camcorder battery, so as we were getting close to the end, you'll see that it'll kind of just vanish and the dialogue will get kind of interrupted midway, and I'll just become kind of a disembodied voice and vanish from it. That's just what happened. I tried my best to finish it, and we're going to try our best to edit it so it looks things, but it'll be a little weird. That's totally on me. I just forgot to recharge the battery when filming other things. But that's about it. Well, welcome to another episode of AnimeCons TV. We're winding down. We're on the last day of AnimeNEXT 2017, and I'm joined by my good friend who I've been wanting to have on the podcast for a little while, Xan.
Hey.
We may have another one coming in, but let's get started.
Yep.
So, AnimeNEXT, for me, this is my first time going to the con since, I think, 2008. It's been like 9 years for me. And that was still when they were in Secaucus, and con's grown up quite a bit.
Yeah, I've been going for the last 7 years. Well, 1 year off, but for the most part, I've been going regularly. I consider my own con, even though I'm a New Yorker, because I like how it is. And last year it shifted from Somerset, New Jersey to Atlantic City, and this is the second year in Atlantic City. Now, compared to last year, it's seemed a little bigger, but it's also a little smaller as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Atlantic City location it's a mixed bag. Like, it's kind of easy to get to. Like, it's not a bad bus ride from New York City, or like you do what I do and meet up with a friend in New York. If you can get New Jersey Transit from Philadelphia straight here. It puts you, there's like a kind of a train station connected to the convention center.
Yeah, it's literally like right next to it.
Yeah, it's in the corner. So, and you can, if you fly into Philadelphia, if you want to come from a little bit further away there. But it's still kind of on the opposite side of New Jersey. I mean, you think New Jersey's a pretty small state, but it's still a pretty fair drive.
It is, and also it is, unlike the other convention center, the area is, it used to be a thriving business and it's slowly dying. So you have several dead casinos, you have the 6 or 7 casinos that are still around, you have the convention center, and then there's really, if you want to take photos, maybe a little courtyard in the front, but there's nothing too extravagant. It's not like Somerset where you had the beautiful gardens, you had the gate where everyone took pictures, you had water, you had everything. It's just not as not user-friendly, attendee-friendly.
Yeah, and it was weird because, like, I mean, they did some great stuff. You saw, like, banners on the street saying, "Welcome AnimeNEXT." They ran for some of the hotels that were further away, which thankfully is beautiful weather, and it's a flat walk, so if you want to walk to and from your hotel, you can. But they also had the shuttles. But at the same time, a lot of, like, unless it was like there's not a whole lot of restaurants there, especially if you want like quick grab and go stuff. Like, I never found like a CVS or like Walgreens, unfortunately, or any like a top pharmacy type store like that.
But if you want to go to Ruth Chris or any other very high expensive restaurant, they'll give AnimeNEXT attendees, who are usually college students or kids, a very cheap discount, like 10% off.
Yeah. So it's a different creature entirely. And like a lot of the restaurants, even when you go to the Atlantic City Boardwalk, can closed up early. So like late night food, like there was like one good restaurant that I went to pretty much every night, and joining us now is also Tom.
Hello.
So we're on the topic of just kind of the location of Atlantic City, and it's not quite the perfect con setting yet, but it has a lot of good stuff. And like, if you knew the right restaurants, and like I had to find out about White House Sub, where a half a sub is what most people think of as a foot long, and things like that. So if you knew the secrets, or you knew someone who could share them, you could find the good places. But if you're just kind of exploring on your own, it was a little hit or miss.
Yeah, there's basically 3 good places, and it's Wingcraft, White House Subs and that taco spot that I heard about like next to White House Subs that I haven't been to.
So and of course you're leaving the convention center, so that's the trade-off you play.
Yeah, but everything's close by.
But comparatively, if you go to the hot dog stand, the bus station, it's like, but it's a bus station hot dog stand.
Yeah.
Or you could pay the con prices for the food, where for 2 burgers, 2 fries, and chips and a soda, it was $34. Which con price is not?
Yeah.
But
So
still.
it's a good location. It's not a great location.
It has potential.
Yeah, and
the actual venue itself is very good.
It's a gorgeous building. There's and we're going to get into this a little bit deeper, and might as well transition now. This convention center is built for panel rooms. Like, it has tons of breakout rooms. It's easy to get between stuff. And this is kind of the elephant in the room for the three of us, I think. Panels content, like the actual panels that were held, like Tom, you did the When Gundam Came to Hollywood about, and there was a lot, just kind of the failed attempt to make a live action movie of Gundam in the early 80s for Hollywood. I went to one that was kind of coffee culture in Japan. I went to the panel with Lex Lang. Dan also joined me, where it was Lex Lang, Ellen Stern, and talking about
the Lupin,
coming back to working on Lupin the Third. Two that I had heard about before, but never got to before, and were kind of part of the reason I was like, I got to get to these panels, and heard that AnimeNEXT had good panel programming. Was the Studio Trigger panel, which
had
the
4th year in a row.
Yeah, which had the a special Inferno Cop short.
Yep, for the 3rd year in a row.
Yeah, and of course ends with everyone chanting "New Jaji."
Yep.
New Jaji.
I didn't know that this Star Spangled Banner only consisted of the words "America Daisuke."
Yeah, it was hysterical.
But now I know.
And I missed it again for a 3rd year.
Yeah,
oh, no.
But the other one that again I've heard about, but I had never gotten to see before, Anime Burger Time, which is just Evan Minto doing clips of people having hamburgers in anime.
It's a very serious panel about burgers in anime.
It is BYOB, bring your own burger.
Which is one of the most fun parts, because like Evan always asks people who brought a burger to hold up their burger at the beginning of the panels.
Try
every time he's done it, as far as I know, he has a photo to compare the burger density.
Yeah, and it's a perfect Saturday night panel that's not 18 plus content.
Yeah.
It's fun. We're all gonna have a good time. We're all laughing at each other.
It's an energizing panel.
Yeah.
But I contributed to that panel a bit. He has like a long string of Gundam clips, and I found him 11 clips from various Gundam shows of people eating hamburgers.
But the problem really with panels this year is a lot of kind of the pre-con work, and I've heard a bunch of different rumors, nothing that I can really confirm about what happened. The short version, though, is the ball was dropped hard. I had people that I personally applied to do a panel. The only way I knew my panel was not approved was when the schedule went up and I saw it wasn't on the list. I never got a thank you, but we want to do it a different way. And looking at the content, the panel I suggested, there were other things that were very similar. So I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But
what it basically boils down to is that the vast majority of people who applied for panels didn't even hear about approvals until, say, a week and a half before the convention. And most people say if they're debuting a panel, they're not even going to start work until they hear about approval.
Yeah.
So a number of our friends who applied to do to the shotgun approach, just submit like 6 or 7 panels. All of a sudden they find out that like the majority of them are approved or are double booked against each other, or
at the same time.
But then asked that they're canceled or rescheduled. Those changes were not. It's understandable that they wouldn't be reflected in the print schedule, because there's very little you can do about that.
Yeah.
But even like the staff not being aware of the cancellations, like in my case, I had to have my Hollywood Gundam panel rescheduled because for unforeseen circumstances, I couldn't be at the con on Saturday.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of prodding. They got back to me pretty quickly about rescheduling it, but it took a lot of prodding to get them to fix it on the guidebook app, because they had posted it for the wrong day, and it wasn't until something like 2 hours before my panel that it had been fixed.
And I mean, there's a lot with what you experienced that I'm going to kind of unload on, because it kind of, everything builds up there. So you were on another panel. You were on the Gatai panel.
Yeah.
You had to leave early because when the Gatai panel ended, it was when your other panel was going to begin, which
Right.
this is why you schedule buffer.
And that's right. I kind of like started a little late, hoping
Yeah.
that there would be some drifters coming in from the Gatai panel.
But even beyond that,
Right,
one of our friends, Hazukari,
Yeah.
was in the panel, was in the audience with me. He submitted another panel that he and I were going to do. He never heard back whether it was going to be, and it wasn't enough time to prep it. So he emailed saying, hey, we got to cancel this because we don't know if it got approved, we can't prep. So while he was in the panel, your panel
Right.
that ended after his, he got a phone call asking, hey, why aren't you here to do your panel, that he had sent an email thing. So if he had gotten notice, he would have been like booked back to back. But because he got canceled, he was getting called about a panel that he had tried to cancel. And that's to me. And then Xan, you got triple booked. You had 3 of your panels at the same time.
Yeah, no, I had my horror panel, my Slipping Through the Fingers panel, and they had my Insane Manga Challenge happening all at the same time. And then to top it off, 2 of those 3 are 18 pluses. They mark them as general audience.
Yeah.
So it's one hand doesn't know what the other hand is doing. And then it's, at first I said, okay, you were approved for 2 panels. They look at the schedule like, hey, it says I have 5.
Yeah.
And it should be noted that, like, in the past, AnimeNEXT has not been like this. This
Yeah.
year is kind of an outlier in that respect.
Yes,
And
new management, new...
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
And one of the other ones I saw, and if you check on my Twitter, and I mean, maybe we can get a picture of it up right here. If you look at this schedule, this is the outside of the room schedule. 2 panels are happening in the same room at the same time, and it's for lack of a better term, sloppy.
Well, that was exactly what happened when they posted my panel on the wrong day. That's exactly what it was. There were 2 panels at the same time in the same room because they had erroneously posted mine on Saturday instead of Friday.
So, again, the content of the programming, like they had, of course, another friend of our podcast, Charles Dunbar, and Viga and Mike Toole, all doing really good stuff. But it's just kind of the behind the scenes nuts and bolts of, if the panelists and the panels are the muscles, the skeleton was falling apart. That's the best way I can think to really describe it.
The other part which I noticed is that, and this has to do with the layout as well, there was a lot of, they were really close together, there was insane amounts of dead time where people were like, there's nothing to do.
Yeah.
And it was like you could have filled those up with content of panel. You could
Or at the very least, that problem might not have existed if there was some buffer time between panels.
Yeah, buffer time. And again, I think going back to why this venue is good, and I wouldn't mind the convention staying here, there's room to grow. There's more rooms to put in panel rooms. There, you could set up another couple of video rooms and stuff. This is a very good venue. And I think room to grow is something that a lot of cons need to kind of consider when they're looking at options. So one of the other things that was interesting for programming that I saw was they had the cosplay wrestling. And they actually set this up in the atrium of the first floor of the convention center. And I, being a convention staffer myself, I kind of cringed like, oh my God, this is going to create a giant traffic jam. But there's so many doors on that first floor, and it was in the corner, that it never really blocked things off. But you could still walk by, like either on the balcony or on the floor, still take a moment to take a look at what's happening.
And there's 4 floors, so you have literally, it's like an actual wrestling event where you had the different floors watching this event happening.
It was fun it was almost more fun to watch the crowd than the event.
Oh, yeah. The layout took a while, though, because they said it was supposed to start at 10:30, and it took them until 10:55, 11:05 to actually make the ring. They should have done that the night before. Like Cosplay, they were done in 10 minutes.
Yep. But it's still enjoyed a lot of stuff here. I heard a lot of people saying, and maybe this is just kind of the circles we move in, that the dealer's room just, it felt like there wasn't anything interesting.
Well, this is the second year that I've been to AnimeNEXT at this venue, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there were fewer vendors total. I felt like there were like wider aisles, which is, I mean, that's nice, but I mean, and maybe it's just me, but like that, it couldn't help shake the feeling that there was just a lot fewer to look at. Like you could walk through the dealer's room and be done a lot quicker than you would, but also there was just a lot less that interested me.
Yeah, and again, it's you almost wonder if it's personality.
Right. Well, there's usually, that's the thing, like people who are looking for kind of retro stuff. Usually there's like one or two dealers that will provide, and that wasn't really here at AnimeNEXT.
Yeah. These are the kind of the dealers you kind of look at as kind of the treasure hunt dealers that you're gonna spend your time like looking through a box of old comics. Not necessarily, oh, here's a box of used action figures. Like, it's still like worthwhile stuff, but you have to be willing to go dive in.
Yeah, there's usually a guy who sells like the like advertising banners from like Anime Pachinko games, and like right out in front of him he has this big display of like Gashapon from like Gundam and like Super Robot stuff and like Sentai and Kamen Rider, and it's like that and like all these Space Battleship Yamato things, and that's the guy I was looking forward to looking at his stuff the most, and he wasn't here.
Yeah.
And that was usually like a fair bet that like I would probably end up getting at least one thing from that guy.
And there also wasn't, I mean, maybe I just missed it, there was really only one or two industry booths. I
didn't see any.
There was Media Blasters.
Right. They're still alive?
Yeah. But I mean, they also don't look like a big presence.
No, they look like they're a first year.
Even their stock is very diminished from what.
It's also really dusty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just the box they dug out of their warehouse or something.
And I'm curious kind of what the reason is, if that's an active decision by the convention or the industry people. I have no insight to know which one it is, but I would be curious to learn which way it is. So
the other thing was you had industry vendors here as panelists. Wouldn't it make sense if your panel is going to be there? Don't you have you sell your merchandise?
Yeah.
I'm talking specifically about Discotech.
Yeah.
They should have had their vendor. We're talking about these upcoming releases, but you can check out our release downstairs. That's pretty much.
Yeah, and I've seen them do that before. I mean, I think it just depends on who can be there. But like, since I think because Mike Toole's doing their panel,
right?
But like the guy who actually runs Discotech isn't there, and he's usually the guy behind the booth, behind the table, selling you Discotech stuff, as the actual guy who owns the company. So it's probably just a question of he couldn't travel to be here.
Sure. Yes.
And like the other thing is I'm a manga reviewer. I love manga. The manga selection was terrible this year.
And there used to be a pretty consistent presence at AnimeNEXT. There would very least be a booth from Vertical.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of manga publishers that are in New York, so it wouldn't necessarily be that much of a hike to get here.
Yeah.
That's why I always assumed the Vertical was here in the first place.
Yeah. So but again, I don't think it was a terrible one, just kind of underwhelming. The only other thing I will say about kind of the dealer's room is, this is kind of one of my convention pet peeves, is they put the artist alley in the back of the dealer's room. So by the time you get it, you're a little burnt out on looking at stuff. It's a weird transition. And I kind of prefer artist alley being its separate room, kind of give it a chance to shine more and make it its own unique thing. But I mean, one of the interesting things, and of course I couldn't get a picture of this, was like pretty much because of the rows of the dealer's room and artist alley, and each row when you hit the artist alley section there were signs saying no photography, which is why I couldn't take a picture of it. But it's interesting to see that emphasized by the convention, because so many people are worried about stolen work and things like that. And cosplayers were smart enough to, oh well, someone wants a picture of me, let's step aside out of artist alley so we can get, not break the rules. And it was interesting to watch kind of attendees being able to police themselves fine. But it was the first time I really saw visibly, no pictures in artist alley.
Yeah, no, the cosplayers at AnimeNEXT, they have a little more decorum than the other ones I've noticed. They actually will listen to the signs.
Yeah, it's not like say like Katsucon with a focus where there's the unintended focus on cosplaying, but cosplayers, like, there was a lot of good stuff to see, and for the most part everyone seemed really well behaved, which is always nice.
Well, last night I heard something interesting happen involving a cosplayer and the police, but overall,
Exception, not the
There's
rule.
always something.
yeah, but exception's not the rule, and this has been very well behaved. There have been no insane chantings. There's also been no large groups. There's been nothing really,
I
no
haven't
focus on
had
anything.
any traffic or congestion
Yeah.
problems, and that is one thing that's an improvement on this venue over the venue they had up to 2 years ago, which, as far as I know, doesn't even exist anymore.
Yep.
Where it was just split between 3 hotels. And yeah, there were a lot of choke points.
Yeah.
And that's not really the case here.
Yeah, I mean, there's the walkway from the Sheraton to the convention center, but at the same time, I think because there was no convention programming in that, again, I don't know what the contracts are, but that's a place they can grow if they need to. I never saw that walkway busy, and I used it every day. So it was faster than going outside to get back to my hotel room.
Yeah.
So that's, any other final thoughts?
Besides that, one thing which I was talking to a lot of different attendees throughout the weekend, including after the dance party and the unintentional dance party, which happened after, which was a lot better. Long story. But the thing is that they agree on 3 things. One, they feel that the loss of the forum was a travesty, because the forum is where they set up meetups. They would put down, we're doing a cosplay meetup for, let's say, Naruto or Homestuck or Attack on Titan, and they would set the time and everyone would show up. Facebook, they got rid of it for whatever reason. They said, go to Facebook. Facebook people are posting things like, is there anyone doing this? Has anyone seen this? And no one's commenting, no one's participating.
And it's always more of a pain to search through that stuff.
Yeah.
It's more pain. However, what certain cons like Otakon does is they have specific locations for these meetups that they have in the panel group, in the panel guide. And what AnimeNEXT could do is, because the 4th floor was virtually empty and they had so many rooms, is maybe set the 4th floor up more for meetup A, meetup room B. So overall, with the panel attendees overall, they just seemed like their big thing was have more meetup group locations, and also there's not a lot of places for shooting. They didn't like that. They also felt that the dealer's room, as we said, the split between Artist Alley and dealers was not effective at all. That's their main complaints about it. But overall, I think that there is room for this to grow. It's having first year syndrome, even though this is a 16-year convention.
Yeah, and it's 2nd year at this location.
Yeah, so they can evolve, I think.
Okay.
Yep, so I think that's it.
Tom, any final thoughts?
Apart from, basically the same sort of thing, there is a lot of room to grow. If it wasn't really for the kind of mismanagement of panel scheduling, I think it would have been a much more enjoyable experience for panelists, and frankly for guests also, because if they're going to a room and they think they're seeing one panel and another panel is going on, it's just confusing. So hopefully they can get that fixed up for next year, and I think it'll be a much more cohesive experience.
Or publish errata, at least. Pronounce errata.
Yeah. And lastly, where can people find what you guys are up to?
You can find me on Twitter @TomAsnable. You can also read, I'm a guest contributor to the blog Zimmerit.moe. I've contributed 2 articles, including the one that my panel, When Gundam Came to Hollywood, was based on, and I've got a few more down in the pipeline.
And I am at www.spirekin.com, SPRAKN, or you can find me on Twitter at Spirekin. I'm also on Twitch under @Spirekin.
Cool.
So you can find me on there. I'm either live streaming, I'm reviewing something, or I'm doing some weird, insane rant on Twitter. So yeah.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Take care.
So once again, that's the con report, and I apologize for the technical difficulties. I want to thank both Xan and Tom for joining us on the con report. And don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes or YouTube or wherever you want to find us. So we're also on the website. if you went to AnimeNEXT 2017 and have some impressions, or if you go to any other convention, don't forget to reach out and share some of your experiences. We're all on Facebook, Google+, leave a comment on YouTube. You can even send us an email at podcast@animecons.tv. And don't forget to also even send us a voicemail if you're at a convention and see something, and call us by calling 762-ADEQUATE. Alright, I'm Doug Wilder, and we'll see you guys next time.